Chapter 5 of The World Set Free by H.G. Wells. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Adam Marsatich. June 2009, Alexandria, Virginia. The World Set Free by H.G. Wells. Chapter the 5th. The Last Days of Marcus Karenin. Section 1. The second operation upon Marcus Karenin was performed at the new station for surgical work at Paran, high in the Himalayas, above the Sutlej Gorge, where it comes down out of Tibet. It is a place of such wildness and beauty as no other scenery in the world affords. The granite terrace which runs around the four sides of the low block of laboratories looks out in every direction upon mountains. Far below in the hidden depths of a shadowy blue cleft, the river pours down in its tumultuous passage to the swarming plains of India. No sound of its roaring haste comes up to these serenities. Beyond that blue gulf, in which whole forests of rock deodars seem no more than small patches of moss, rise vast precipices of many-colored rock, fretted above, lined by snowfalls, jagged into pinnacles. These are the northward wall of a towering wilderness of ice and snow, which clambers southward, higher and wilder and vaster to the culminating summits of our globe, to Dhaulagiri and Everest. Here are cliffs of which no other land can show the like, and deep chasms, in which Mont Blanc might be plunged and hidden. Here are ice fields as big as inland seas, on which the tumbled boulders lie so thickly that strange little flowers can bloom among them under the untempered sunshine. To the northward, and blocking out any vision of the uplands of Tibet, rises that citadel of porcelain, that Gothic pile, the Leopoldgil, walls, towers, and peaks, a clear 12,000 feet of veined and splintered rock above the river. And beyond it and eastward and westward rise peaks behind peaks, against the dark blue Himalayan sky. Far away below to the south the clouds of the Indian rains pile up abruptly and are stayed by an invisible hand. Hither it was that with a dreamlike swiftness Karenin flew high over the irrigations of Rajputana and the towers and cupolas of the ultimate Delhi, and the little group of buildings, albeit the southward wall dropped nearly 500 feet, seemed to him as he soared down to it like a toy lost among these mountain wildernesses. No road came up to this place, it was reached only by flight. His pilot descended to the great courtyard, and Karenin, assisted by his secretary, clambered down through the wing fabric and made his way to the officials who came out to receive him. In this place, beyond infections and noise and any distractions, surgery had made for itself a house of research and a healing fastness. The building itself would have seemed very wonderful to eyes accustomed to the flimsy architecture of an age when power was precious. It was made of granite, already a little roughened on the outside by frost, but polished within and of a tremendous solidity, and in a honeycomb of subtly lit apartments, were the spotless research benches, the operating tables, the instruments of brass, and fine glass and platinum and gold. Men and women came from all parts of the world for study or experimental research. They wore a common uniform of white and ate at long tables together, but the patients lived in an upper part of the buildings, and were cared for by nurses and skilled attendants. The first man to greet Karenin was Siana, the scientific director of the institution. Beside him was Rachel Borkin, the chief organizer. "You are tired?" she asked, and old Karenin shook his head. "Cramped," he said. "I have wanted to visit such a place as this." He spoke as if he had no other business with them. There was a little pause. "How many scientific people have you got here now?" he asked. "Just 392," said Rachel Borkin. "And the patients and attendants and so on?" 2030. I shall be a patient, said Karenin. I shall have to be a patient, but I should like to see things first. Presently I will be a patient. You will come to my rooms? Suggested Sienna. And then I must talk to this doctor of yours, said Karenin. But I would like to see a bit of this place and talk to some of your people before it comes to that. He winced and moved forward. I have left most of my work in order, he said. You have been working hard up to now? Yes, and now I have nothing more to do, and it seems strange, and it's a bother, this illness and having to come down to oneself. This doorway and the row of windows is well done. The gray granite is just the line of gold. And then those mountains beyond through that arch, it's all very well done. Section 2. Karenin lay on the bed with a soft white rug about him, and Fowler, who was to be his surgeon, sat on the edge of the bed and talked to him. An assistant was seated quietly in the shadow behind the bed. The examination had been made, and Karenin knew what was before him. He was tired, but serene. So I shall die, he said, unless you operate? Fowler assented. And then, said Karenin, smiling, probably I shall die. Not certainly. Even if I do not die, shall I be able to work? There is just a chance. So firstly I shall probably die, and if I do not, then perhaps I shall be a useless invalid. I think if you live, you may be able to go on, as you do now. Well then, I suppose I must take the risk of it. Yet couldn't you, Fowler, couldn't you drug me and patch me instead of all this vivisection? A few days of drugged and active life, and then the end? Fowler thought. We are not sure enough yet to do things like that, he said. But a day is coming when you will be certain. Fowler nodded. You make me feel as though I was the last of deformity. Deformity is uncertainty, inaccuracy. My body works doubtfully. It is not even sure that it will die or live. I suppose the time is not far off when such bodies as mine will no longer be born into the world. You see, said Fowler, after a little pause, it is necessary that spirits such as yours should be born into the world. I suppose, said Karenin, that my spirit has had its use, but if you think that it is because my body is as it is, I think you are mistaken. There is no peculiar virtue and defect. I have always chafed against all this. If I could have moved more freely and lived a larger life in health, I could have done more. But some day, perhaps, you will be able to put a body that is wrong altogether right again. Your science is only beginning. It's a subtler thing than physics and chemistry, and it takes longer to produce its miracles, and meanwhile a few more of us must die in patience. Fine work is being done, and much of it, said Fowler. I can say as much, because I have nothing to do with it. I can understand a lesson, appreciate the discoveries of abler men, and use my hands. But those others, Pigot, Masterson, Ley, and the others, they are clearing the ground fast for the knowledge to come. Have you had time to follow their work? Karenin shook his head. But I can imagine the scope of it, he said. We have so many men working now, said Fowler. I suppose at present there must be at least 1,000 thinking hard, observing, experimenting, for one who did so in 1900. Not counting those who keep the records? Not counting those, of course. The present indexing of research is in itself a very big work, and it is only now that we are getting it properly done. But already we are feeling the benefit of that. Since it ceased to be a paid employment and became a devotion, we have had only those people who obeyed the call of an aptitude at work upon these things. Here, I must show you it today, because it will interest you. We have our copy of the Encyclopedic